Hi folks, we're in Three Worlds by Nelson Barbour, Charles Taze Russell, page 43. Barbour and Russell are speculating on the nature of spirits and explicitly the powers that the saints, when they become spirits, which by the way is not a Christian teaching, but was an assumption behind the roots, in the roots of Russellism, that when the resurrection occurs they will have a spiritual resurrection. Well, they're speculating now on what powers that will involve, that they will be able to access and utilize in this new world that is shortly to come after 1914. So they say on page 43, it is useless to deny their wonderful developments, and that they do now materialize themselves and appear in actual likeness of the person they choose to represent is placed beyond all reasonable doubt by the testimony of numerous and creditable eyewitnesses. Here they're talking about this newfangled, well, some called it a science, spiritualism, the calling upon the dead. And obviously Barbour and Russell take the position that this is a masquerade by fallen spirits. They go on, and that they will yet do still more wonderful things, as claimed by their votaries, we cannot doubt, that they may yet eat and drink, and thus actually consume food of man, is not at all improbable. Angels of light have so done in former dispensations, and after the resurrection the saints will thus manifest themselves. Hence there is one and only one absolute test by which to determine their true character. That they are spirits all admit, and some of them claim to be good spirits, but by their fruits ye shall know them. Ask a fish if it is a creature of the air or of the water, and if it had the gift of language and should claim to be a bird of paradise, you have only to take it out of its element to discover the fraud. Try the spirits. Throw back the shutters, open the doors, let in the clear light of day, and if they are spirits of light, your seance will not be disturbed. The angels of light appeared to Abraham as he sat in the door of his tent in the heat of the day. But if they are the spirits God has reserved under chains of darkness, they will be compelled to retreat from the light, even as vermin slink into holes under similar circumstances. So they're, of course, commenting upon this trend in the seances to do all these wonderful things in darkness. No rational human being, except their deeds are evil, can desire the fellowship of spirits of darkness. They are obliged to have some light by which moving objects can be discerned as a necessity to the spectators, we know. And so is a fish obliged to have some air. But the line of demarcation between their element and the light is clearly defined, and no one need any longer be deceived unless they love to be led captive by spirits of darkness. For just in proportion to the amount of light, their power of materialization is diminished. To say you do not believe these are fallen angels does not help the matter. You know they are of the darkness, and that darkness is twin to evil, and that all the foul spirits of earth seek its cover, and that no respectable person likes to be found in these dens of darkness, or with the literature that comes from such a fountain. So this is all based upon the assumption that the fallen angels actually have the ability to communicate with men, which belief the Watchtower is thrown away by assuming that the Tartarus is not the atmosphere of this world, but rather the Tartarus mentioned in 2 Peter is a lower pit in their version of hell, or Hades, where the angels that sinned before the flood have been confined ever since. And it is a God-given rule to compare what is known of angels and spiritual things in order to know what he has in store for the saints. We gather from all of the above, first, that in filling the office of kings and priests and reigning on the earth, the saints will be and appear on all ordinary occasions, just like human beings in the flesh, that they will eat, drink, and sleep. At least they will rest even as God rested. And his proof text for that, their proof text is, let the saints be joyful in glory, let them sing aloud upon their beds, let the high praises of God be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written, This honor hath all the saints, or better, hath all his saints. Praise ye the Lord. Well, this is Psalm 149, verses 5 to 9, and of course this is not a text witnesses use or are familiar with today. But here, obviously, Barbour and Russell are taking it quite literally. The saints have this honor, and they are the resurrected saints of the New Testament, even though this is a psalm in the Old Testament written to Israel. Another version, another example of their haphazard use of Scripture. They go on, in these manifestations, if they take on a real body of flesh, eating and drinking is either a necessity or a pleasure. For in those cases where Christ or angels have thus materialized themselves, and so remain for a considerable time, they have eaten and they have, this is bad grammar, but I'm going to read it the way he has it, they have eat and drank. Otherwise they have not. Witness the case of Gabriel's appearing to Daniel, to Zacharias, and to Mary. Also that of Manoah. And the angel of the Lord said, Though thou detain me, I will not eat of thy bread. And the angel did wondrously, for it came to pass, when the flame went up from off the altar, that the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. That's Judges 13:16-20. Hence there is no reason why resting on their beds may not be either a necessity or pleasure. The above text clearly places the saint in glory, and at the time he is prepared to execute judgment on the nations when he is called upon to sing aloud upon his bed. Hence it appears their life and enjoyments are in many respects to be similar to those in the mortal state. All this, including their power to take on or put off a body of flesh, is no more wonderful than is the change itself from mortality to immortality, which occurs in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. And as angels can materialize themselves or pass off in a flame of fire, we know the saints will do these things, for in the resurrection they are to be as the angels of God. Now again, this chaotic way of doing Scripture, we know that when Christ talked about the resurrected being like angels of God, he wasn't talking specifically about any of the things that are mentioned here, but rather about being given in marriage. But that doesn't seem to stop Barbour and Russell from doing what they want to do with Scripture. We'll put a link on your screen to Graeber again. What did the spirits teach an apostate Roman Catholic priest about the afterlife and God and Christ? And what about apostate Protestants? Because after all, that's in effect what Barbour and Russell were. They are those who deliberately broke away from the Protestant church and became apostates. What does the light that they pretend is from above teach them about heaven and the afterlife and the nature of angels and God and Christ? And the scary thing that I learned even while I was transitioning from the Watchtower to my afterlife was that the occultists were getting the same information about God, Christ, and the afterlife, and even the nature of salvation, as we were getting as Jehovah's Witnesses. So check out Graeber if you haven't already. And next time, more speculation about the wonderful things that the saints will be able to do with their new bodies, spiritual bodies.